There's no reason why that couldn't be your story.
You don't have an expiration date.
I love that.
The actual pages. Like, that's all that matters at the end of the day.
This is the Authors and Agents podcast. Holly, I'm super excited to have you here with me today to pick your brain and learn more about you as an author and as a person. So you have a book coming out here end of July. Can you tell me a little bit about Name Your Price?
I sure can. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here. And actually, fair warning, this is the first time I've had to do any publicity for this book and talk about it. And I'm literally like, as of, 20 minutes ago, so deep into revisions on my next book that I really have to like pull my brain out of that and get it into this one. So sorry if this comes out a little not super clear, but I'll do my best. So yes, Name Your Price is my is my next rom-com. It comes out, yes, very end of July. And it is about a pair of broke exes who end up on a reality TV game show trying to win $1 million by living locked in the same house for a month.
Ugh.
So yeah, it's probably like, I don't know if silly is the right word, but it's the kind of silliest premise I've come up with, I guess. So yeah, I guess a little more on it. So it takes place in LA. It's set in like Hollywood in the kind of TV film industry. And our main characters, Olivia, is an entertainment writer. So she writes for a fictional like entertainment magazine. And she is actually the daughter of two famous, although deceased celebrities. So she's like the love child from this kind of scandalous affair from the 90s. And then Chuck, our love interest, is kind of like a B-list actor who's trying to make his way in the industry. And he recently got fired from a job, and we don't really know why. And so that's why he's broke. And Olivia is broke because she is the caretaker for her grandmother, and her grandma is in like a care home, and she just needs more money to help pay for that. So they're both desperate, and they have a very volatile relationship, and they actually have this big like blowout breakup in public, and someone catches them on camera, and it goes viral, and the TV producers see it, and they were like, "Oh, this would be perfect for our show to try to get them to live together and win money." So that's the setup and background, and yeah, then it gets a little dicey and spicy while they're locked in the house together.
I love it. Well, that is so exciting. This is Name Your Price will be book number 3. Is that right?
Correct. Yeah.
Okay. That's
I would say, yeah, it's book number 3, but I would say it's like my most rom-com-y rom-com so far.
okay.
It's a little more, it's definitely, you mentioned you'd read The Deja Glitch, which was my previous book, and it's definitely spicier than that one and a little more dramatic. So yeah, it's kind of a shift for me, and I'm excited to have it out there. And I've been very interested in, I mean, it has been interesting to see kind of the reader response to it so far. Yeah, I'm having a good time.
That's so exciting. Yeah, your first two have a little bit more like like a magical element kind of going on with it too, right? And so that isn't so much
right. Yeah,
what I can tell for Name Your Price. So that is a little different. So it's like it's number 3, but it's kind of like number 1 in its own little category for you.
Kind of, yeah. There's definitely no magic in this one, and it's fully grounded in reality.
Awesome. Well, this is exciting. So, such a journey to be on. So tell me a little bit about how this happened through you. Like give me kind of the lowdown of how, you made your journey through publishing.
Yeah, it's been a wild journey, and I'm very bad at like standing back and recognizing my progress because I'm so like, like what's next, and I've been trying to kind of have more perspective on that, because I've come a really long way, and I need to take time to like be proud of that and what I've accomplished, but I'm just not good at that as a person. But yeah, so I appreciate this question because it makes me think about it, I guess, is where I was going with that. So yeah, I started, what year is it? 2024. I started querying before that, I always liked writing, like as a kid, I would do little short stories and poetry and whatnot. And then it was actually in graduate school. I have a PhD in psychology, so very different than my creative career. But in graduate school, I was so entrenched in like science and logic and math and statistics, you know, that I think the creative side of my brain really needed an outlet as well. So I started writing again, kind of as like my happy place while I was going through such an intense, you know, rigorous
Yeah.
graduate training program. And I wasn't doing it with any real intention to try to get something published. I just kind of organically happened. Like I think I got to the point where I was like I don't know, this might be good enough to try to, you know, to try to see what could happen if I submitted it somewhere. And I knew nothing about traditional publishing. I like just dove into it, did a bunch of research, learned what querying was, learned what a literary agent was, you know, kind of the steps of how you progress through the system in the industry. And I think I started querying in like the spring of 2016, I want to say it was. And actually back then I was a thriller writer. So thriller is my favorite genre to read. So I just naturally, like, that's what I wanted to write was,
Yeah.
you know, murder mysteries. So that's what I started doing. And yeah, I queried for 3 years. And over that time I queried 5 different manuscripts. So I tend to write relatively quickly. And in going through that process, like I very quickly learned that it's, you know, 99% rejection. Like you get told no over and over and over and over and over again. And I think I got to the point where I was more like, I don't care which book gets signed. I just want a book to get signed. And that helped me kind of move on to the next one. Yeah. So I signed with my literary agent in 2019, like spring of 2019. And we went on submission with one of my thrillers that summer. And I also got married that summer. So that was a really fun kind of emotional roller coaster of events going on at the same time. Yeah. And that first book did not sell on submission. And then during 2020, kind of peak lockdown, I got this urge to just write something a little more joyful and happy. I think because we were all feeling the need for that in the summer of 2020. So that's where my debut, Nothing But the Truth, that's where that was born from. And that ended up becoming my debut. So that one was a completely different submission experience. So my first thriller that we took on sub, I think we were out for like, I don't know, 4 to 6 months or something, and just never really got close anywhere. And then Nothing But the Truth sold at auction in 2 weeks. So it was like night and day difference. Yeah. So that one sold in February 21. And then from there, it's been this kind of steady escalation of more and more projects. So yeah, it took a long time to get here, but long time, a lot of rejection. But now I'm at the point where I have my 3rd book about to come out. I have 2 books coming out next year, 2 more the year after that. So I ended up finding I have multiple publishers, and it's a lot to juggle now, but it's been a lot of hard work to get here. But I think I'm at the point where I'm like, wow, I'm actually doing it. Like it's happening. It's real. That was a very long answer to your short question.
Well, that's supposed to be a long answer to my short question, so
okay.
No worries. But you know, I think what I love about this question is it makes you brag about yourself a little bit and recognize all the things you went through, which I love. But also, you know, everybody's journey, I feel like ends up being this kind of windy, twisty version of like what we're not expecting too. You know, like you probably weren't thinking, oh, I'd go on sub multiple times and not have my book sell, or that you'd change genres completely. And then that's what would end up working for you. But
yeah, for sure.
Yeah. I'm glad that you did, and I'm glad that you took a chance writing something different, because here you are. Yeah, and to have so much still going on, and to have 2 books next year and the year after that, that's quite an accomplishment.
Yeah, I think the transition to writing like women's fiction and romance was totally unexpected. Like I remember when I was drafting my my debut, Nothing But the Truth, I remember sending like the first couple chapters to my mom, and I was just, like the safest person possible who could read it. And
Yeah, right.
I was like, is this funny? Like, can I do comedy? I'm like, what? I don't know what I'm doing. And she was like, this is great. Of course, mom response, but yeah, very unexpected to take that shift. And now, I feel so like at home in the genre. I'm still learning. I feel like everyone learns with every book, but I feel like, I don't know, it's kind of like meant to be like, of course I would write romance. Like it just fits with my personality and my outlook on life. And like, of course I would do this. Like, why didn't I think of that?
Yeah. You just needed to go through different things and try it, and that's okay to figure out what you can still love thrillers and love to read them, but yeah, your voice leans more romance. That's okay.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously it's been a while since you queried, but looking back on your journey, looking back on what you know now about the publishing industry, maybe what would be your like top tip to authors who are querying right now?
Oh man. Well, that honestly is like the most harrowing process I've ever been through. Like it's so, I joke with other writers that I still like when I see an email subject line with the letter Q in it anywhere, my heart still like drops.
Yeah.
Yes. Even not even the word query. If it's just like, like question or quality or whatever, I'm like, oh, just that reflex of seeing it, really, it just, it does a number on you to be that vulnerable for that long and face so much rejection is a lot to go through. So I think, my biggest tip is like, develop a thick skin, like truly, because in this industry, the rejection never stops. Like it's weird to say, but it's true. Like the further I get into it, I've learned that, when you're querying, the rejection is someone saying no, no, I don't want to represent this book. But when you're published and you're, trying to get more book deals and whatnot, the rejection can come in forms of like, you didn't make this list. You didn't get picked for this book club. You didn't get, something that everyone else got. Or like your editor passed on your next manuscript or, all sorts of things. And it's this kind of continual, like how many times can you get back up scenario. And it just doesn't end. So I think like querying will kind of prepare you for that to some extent. But I think the knowledge that you're going to have to keep facing rejection and learn how to move on from it and grow from it and just keep like, it's just part of this process. So I know that's a tough message, but I think it really like that really helped me. The sooner I realized like, oh yeah, this is going to be really hard. I realized that I could kind of toughen up and work through it. I think too, another thing that I've thought back on again, as I've moved further through the industry and the processes involved in it, I think too, that, the sooner you can kind of have this mind shift of separating your art from it becoming a product, the more kind of like emotionally successful you'll be with the process. Because that's really what's happening. It's you're pouring your heart and soul into this thing that you love so much and you're creating, and then you're handing it off for someone to literally package it up and sell it. And just the things that are going to happen to it as a project, sometimes go against these, warm, fuzzy feelings of you having created it. Like you lose control over things that are going to happen to it and how it's going to be marketed and positioned, and even, the cover they're going to slap on it and everything. So I think the sooner you can kind of learn to separate those two things, like detach yourself from seeing it as a piece of art and a product, that's helpful as well.
I think those are great.
Harsh truth. Sorry.
No, they're harsh, but they're good pieces of advice because like you said, like even now you still have that reaction to the letter Q in your email, but you can still have maybe that trauma response, but understand in your mind, like, okay, it's, rejection, it's part of it. And like you said, it doesn't just end when you're done with the querying process, right? Like you had books that didn't sell on sub, you have all these things that happen. And I think too, as you go along in this journey, like that's something that eventually just happens. Like be kind to yourself. If you're
Yep.
upset, like at the beginning with query rejections and all of that, like it will come with time and perspective. But I might think that's such great advice, and definitely something that you have to prepare yourself for, because you're taking something, like you said, a piece of art, something you love, and you're entering it into a business world, and that changes what it is and how you react to it and everything.
Exactly. And I think too, something also to mention, the greatest resource that I have found to kind of help work through all that is other writers,
Mm.
because no one else can really understand what that feels like. And other writers just get it. Like, you don't have to. I've seen several people say like I wish there was such a thing as like a therapist who specializes in publishing, because like you can't fully explain the context to someone who hasn't
Yeah.
experienced it, So I think, yeah, other writers definitely, even if you're just like commiserating, just to have someone else be like, yeah, that really sucks. Like, that's really helpful. That goes a long way when you're working in this kind of brutal industry day in and day out.
Yeah, having those writer friends is so important. It's good to have your cheerleaders at home, or your mom who you can send something to and be like, is this okay? Like, but to have people who understand just how hard it is, and just to be able
Yes.
to be like, this sucks, like, and they're like, I know. That is so crucial to the process too.
Yep. Totally.
Well, I appreciate you sharing that advice and those tips, because it is harsh truths, but it is so important to the journey. I want to ask about your, like, so when you read for pleasure, when you're reading just stuff you love, it sounds like thrillers are a huge thing for you. Who are some of your favorite authors to read?
I love, let's see, I actually made a list because I always stumble on this question. I can't, if I'm not like staring at my bookshelf, I just like go blank when someone
Yeah.
asks me this question.
Yeah.
But no, I love Ashley Winstead. We actually share an agent, and I feel super privileged when I get to like talk to her. But she's probably one of my favorite thriller writers. She's like an auto buy for me, no matter what. But she just writes such like smart, twisty
I love that.
books, but also are layered with this like kind of social commentary that's like so good. Yeah, she has. I think her next ones are out next year. I don't think she has anything coming out this year, but she's definitely one of my favorites. I also really love Jane Harper. She's an Australian author, and I think she kind of, her popularity grew in the U.S. with her book, The Lost Man. That was kind of a sequel to The Dry, but set in the same universe. But anyway, yeah, no, her books are so, again, like murder mystery thrillery kind of stuff, but they're just so atmospheric. Like, I feel like my favorite one, the Lost Man, was set in like the Australian outback, and I literally felt like I like had a sunburn after I read it. Like, I could feel like the dirt on me from being in the outback. Like, it was so good. And she writes like that book has like one of the most haunting endings. I love it so much. And then kind of on the opposite spectrum, one of my favorite romance authors is Catherine Center. Her books just
so
feel
good.
like hug to me.
So
I think she takes like the most like things that you wouldn't expect to like hit you so hard. Like, I was talking to someone about this the other day in her book, Happiness for Beginners, the scene where the love interest like loses his glasses and she helps him find them. I was sobbing at that scene. And I think it might have to do that I wear glasses, and like I couldn't understand how scary that would be, but just like the tenderness of that moment, oh my god, it hit me so hard. Yeah, I love her books. I'm excited for her next one comes out, I think in like June or July, the rom-commers.
Oh, I just finished it. I read it last month. It was so good. I could not put it down. So good.
Oh, good. I'm excited.
It's really great. Well, I appreciate you sharing those. I mean, there's so many good books and good authors out there that, like, there are people who haven't heard of those that will now have something wonderful to read.
Good. Yeah. Happy to spread the word.
Yes. So when you're writing, do you use like a fancy writing software, or are you like a Microsoft Word? Like, how does that look for you?
Oh, I'm totally a Word person. I think I'm very, very much a pantser. I just make it up as I go along. I hardly ever plot. I only plot when I'm forced to plot. That's another little hidden surprise inside the publishing industry when you start getting multi-book deals or you have to submit option materials. They always want to see an outline and a synopsis and sample chapters. And I'm like, well, my brain doesn't work that way, so I'll do my best. But no, I like discover the story as I go along. So I've seen people. I went to this like kind of like workshop thing once on like Scrivener. Scrivener, is that how you say it? Scrivener.
Something.
And that tool is very useful for people who do plot and want like the structure. But it honestly made me like anxious. Like I could not overlay that much structure onto my draft. Like I just need a blank page and I just need to be able to just like go and not care what happens.
I remember downloading and trying Scrivener for a month or so, and there was just too much in it. Like there was too much options for what you could do. Like I'm totally Microsoft Word. Like I just need the page. I just need to put the words down.
It's like don't too flexible.
Yeah. I was like, I can't decide what's going on here. It gave me anxiety too.
Exactly. Yeah, that's how I was like, oh, turn it off. Yeah. I think I should say too that I draft in Word, but I make a lot of notes in the Notes app on my phone. Because I'll think of something and think of something in the middle of the day or as I'm falling asleep or whatever, and I'll just like jot it down. So I end up with a pretty healthy size note document for each book that I work on.
Yeah, the Notes app on your phone is so great. And I have a Mac computer, so what I love is the Notes app on my phone. I can put ideas in there, or if something comes to me like in the middle of the day or right before I'm going to bed, I can write it in there and then I can copy and paste it from my computer, because it's all interconnected into the Word. That's my favorite.
Yeah, makes it super easy. Love the iCloud.
Yes, thank you, iCloud. There's things I don't love about it, but that one thing is what I love about it. So when you are writing and you're in the thick of drafting, you're, all of that going on, what's your favorite thing about writing, and then what's the most challenging thing about the actual act of writing for you?
Oh, that's a good question. I think my absolute favorite part is drafting. Like that in itself just brings me so much joy. Like I've really, as I've worked through this publishing process, like multiple books now, and gotten more kind of entrenched in the industry, and I've learned about just all the different components of it, I've really been very deliberate about trying to take joy in the parts of it that bring me most joy, and also the parts of it that I can control, because the rest of it is just out of your control. There's nothing, you can't, once you finish writing the book, it's out of your hands, and you have, no more say in what happens to it, and if it sells, and if it, anything. So I've tried to become very, very present for the drafting part of it, because that's my favorite part. I really do experience this kind of like flow state where it's adequately challenging but rewarding at the same time, and I'm just so in it, and just like, I get to the point where I'm like possessed by a story, and my husband will be like, how you doing over there? Like, you haven't eaten anything all day. Are you okay? And I love it. Like nothing else makes me feel like that. And that's how I know, like that's what I come back to when I think of like, oh, this is so hard. Why am I doing this? Why am I putting myself through this industry? But then I come back to like that moment and that feeling. And I'm like, okay, yeah, that's why. This is why I do this. I think the hardest part is probably revisions. I mentioned I'm right in the thick of revising my next romance right now. And I think that's particularly difficult for me because like I am such a pantser, and it comes out like the plot comes out all in one go kind of. And I feel like in my brain, it's like this is how it's structured. This is how it makes sense. And now when I have to revise it, I literally have to go in and like take it apart and put it back together. And that's just a whole different like thought process and part of your brain to do that it just is more challenging for me. but it always gets better. That's another thing I've learned. Like, even if revisions and editing is painful, like, it always comes out a better product on the other side. So just gotta muscle your way through it.
Yes, yes, you do. But yeah, revising is so much different than the drafting stage and like that flow state when like things are just so good in what you're writing and you just like can't stop. That's so different from revisions where it's like, okay, let me pick apart this and
Yes.
fix all the little nitty gritties.
Yes.
It's such a different like part of your brain, I feel like.
For sure.
Yeah. Well, when you are drafting, you're getting to know your characters, you're like creating this new world and getting to know them, what do you do to get inside your characters' heads and really understand who they are?
Ooh, that's a really good question. I think I actually was just talking to one of my editors about this the other day because I realized I'm like I said earlier, I feel like I learn with every book. I learn like how to, kind of improve my craft, but I also learn about my own processes, and how writing works for me as an author. And I've realized that since I do the pantser thing again, since I make it up, the first draft is really just like me telling the story to myself, like just get the plot out, right? It's just like plot, 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 make it make sense. And then I've found that the second draft for me is really deepening the characters and figuring out their motivations and their fears and why this story is the most important thing that's ever happened to them in their life. Like, why does it matter? Why are they doing this? Why are they doing that? And to be able to, I guess, think on that level, I really do like write a little biography for them. Like, even if it's like a couple paragraphs, I write like this is their background. This is like nothing that would ever really end up on the page, just things that make them who they are. And that definitely helps me. And I remember actually so Gillian Flynn is like one of my all-time favorite authors, the author of Gone Girl, the biggest monster book ever, monster hit book ever. I saw an interview once with her where she said when she was creating the characters for that book for Nick and Amy, they're both kind of terrible people in their own ways. She went to the extent that she like made like a Netflix playlist for each of them. And I was like, I've never gotten that deep with my characters, but I do think it is helpful to really think about, like who they are as a person. Because when you have the kind of depth of that understanding, then it'll come across on the page and it'll just make it a richer reading experience for the audience.
I love that. I think that when you know your characters that way, like it definitely shows on the page, right? Because then they're a full-fleshed person. And I think that helps your reader just be more entrenched in the world and the story you're trying to create for them. So yes, it requires more work on your end. Like you create things that won't ever see the page, but it definitely has its effect on the actual story.
Definitely.
Well, awesome. Holly, I just have a couple questions left for you. I'd love to know who have been your biggest supporters of your writing journey.
My biggest supporters. Well, Name Your Price is actually dedicated to my husband. Because I wouldn't have made it. I wouldn't have finished it without him. This book, I really truly rewrote it like 4 times. I think the final word count ended up like 95, 96,000. But there were honestly like 4 points where during the drafting and revision process where I like gutted like 20,000 words of it and completely pivoted it. And I remember when it was going through developmental edits with my editor, I was just like, I can't make it work. And I had like resigned to the fact that like, this is going to be my like, not so good book. And my husband was like, he's like, no, he actually, I wrote in the acknowledgments of it at the end, what he said to me, he was like, just write a book that you love, just so like simply, like, just write a book that you love. And I actually took that to heart and I was like, you know what, I can do that. So he gets a lot of credit for this book. And he actually, the love interest in the book shares a lot of personal similarities with my husband, just some of his like behaviors and his antics. But no, really, truly through all of this, he's been my biggest supporter. He actually, this is really cool. Just the way that it all happened when before we were even engaged and we were just dating, we went on a trip to Hawaii with my parents actually. And there was one night where just the two of us were sitting on the beach, and I like confessed to him that I wanted to be an author. Like I hadn't really told anyone. And he was like the first person I told that I wanted to do this seriously. And of course, his first question, he was like, "What's your book about?" And I was like, "Oh God, don't make me tell you." But then 7 years later, we got married on almost that exact same beach, and I had my debut book with me. So it was a very like full circle moment. But he's for sure, he's a team player in many ways, that he helps me like act out scenes sometimes. Like I'll go up to him, like just the other day I walked up to him and I was like stand there and reach for my hand, because I was trying to describe like if you reached out for someone's hand, like where their thumb would be on your hand, because I wanted this like very specific movement, and I didn't know if that was like, you know, anatomically correct. So I was like, just give me your hand. And like he'll do stuff like that all the time. But he also, you know, he knows that I otherwise have a full-time day job, so I, you know, fit writing in mostly on weekends. So he's very good about, you know, helping with like grocery shopping and household chores, and just kind of keeping our household functioning when I'm, you know, sitting in my pajamas till 4 p.m. staring at my computer. So yeah, definitely the MVP of our of helping me get books into the world. And then also my parents, my second book, The Deja Witch, is dedicated to them, because it came out the year of their 40th wedding anniversary. And I was like, that's too cool of a coincidence to not acknowledge. But they've been my biggest supporters for anything in life. You know, I think if I told them like, I want to be an astronaut, they would be like, cool, go for it. They've always, you know, supported whatever dream I have, whatever shape it takes. So, I mean, they'll like, you know, fly out to my book launch events and stuff too. So definitely appreciate their support as well.
That's so wonderful. I'm so glad you have your husband and your parents to be your biggest cheerleaders and help push you forward. And your husband sounds like a serious MVP. Like I know how it can be to be like banging your head against the wall with something, and to have him be like, just read the book you love. Like that's the best advice. And
yes,
we would never say to ourselves as authors. So continue on, Mr. James.
Yep.
Well, Holly, my last question. I'd love to know what your favorite book is right now. This is not your favorite book of all time, not the best book you've ever read, just something you've read recently that you really enjoyed and you want other people to know about.
Oh man, I'm woefully behind on reading right now because I've been in so deep into drafting and revising and stuff. But I did just read an early copy of Kate Robb's next romance, Primetime Romance. And it's so cute. Like if you were a Dawson's Creek fan, like this book will just hit the spot for you, because it's about, I think it comes out in September. But it's about this young woman who she's obsessed with a TV show that's, you know, the fictional version of Dawson's Creek, basically. And she's kind of, you know, down on her luck in life, and she ends up making a wish, and she ends up in that TV show as like one of the characters with this guy, and it plays out about, you know, like it's, you know, everything always is happy and perfect in these TV shows, but then not really. And it's just really cute, and it's so nostalgic and just perfect. You know, it hits all the references of, you know, this kind of stereotypical character and the way things play out and stuff. Yeah, it was a really good time. Super fun read.
That sounds so lovely. Well, Holly, I'm so excited for you. I'm so excited for Name Your Price to come out and to see what else you've got, you know, coming up. It sounds like you've got, you know, great lineup going forward. And I'm just appreciate your time and letting me pick your brain and get to know you. It's been a blast.
Yes, thank you so much. I'm excited as well. It should be a very interesting next couple of years.
Yeah, to have 2 books coming out in a year is kind of uncommon too. So to have 2 years of that is pretty awesome.
I know.
I love it.
It feels like a good idea right now, but we'll see. Ask me again next year.
Yeah, we'll touch base. We'll be like, so how's that 2 book thing going for you?
Oh my gosh.